I want you to get quiet inside of yourself right now. Tune out all the noise, tune out all the distractions, and listen to yourself. If you're here, you want your books, you want your art, you want your creations to reach the world. You want people to experience what you have made and to be changed by it. That desire that you have, it's not going to happen unless you change what you're currently doing.
Becoming a household name is my longest and dearest dream. And though I haven't always known exactly how I wanted to make my mark on the world, I have always had grand dreams. From being an astronaut to running for president of the United States of America. So when I found my passion to write the next great American novel, I began chasing that dream with my inborn zeal. Over the years, people have told me I'll burn out working too much, give up when I realize it's a game for the lucky, or quit when I see the 1,000th rejection. But somehow, I'm still going. And it dawned on me, whether you're a current or future reader of mine, or whether you're something entirely else, I owe it to you and to me to document this journey. I'm not a guru or an expert, but a simple enthusiast. If you have a passion for becoming a household name, or you've just always wanted to know what makes us dreamers tick, this podcast is for you. Thanks for listening.
This is something that I have been confronting myself with on a daily basis. Over the last week since Sunday, I have had COVID. It's the second time this year that I've had it. I got it last spring, right around the time my friend Rich Hosek came to visit for a book sale we were doing in Omaha. And I didn't know at the time that I had COVID, so I unfortunately exposed some people to that on the last day of the book sale, maybe even on the first day. I was not symptomatic until about the middle of the show. But COVID for me, it is fairly intense. It's not life-threatening, but it is intense. It seems to take me down for about a week. And when I get sick, I get depressed. It always happens this way. I get sick, my body aches, everything hurts. But worse than all of the discomfort, the congestion, the dizziness, the coughing, the fatigue, is the sense of complete worthlessness. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if you can relate, but there's something about being sick that I feel like the world's joke. I feel like a turd floating in a toilet bowl, and that tends to lead me to a fairly reflective place. And I've been thinking about the effort and the energy that I'm putting in. I look at what I've accomplished versus what I had hoped to accomplish by this age. I never make a big deal of my birthday. I was raised without birthday parties, and so it was kind of trained into me. But I do, in my heart, love my birthday, and I want people to be like, yay, Jody, you're the best. Because that's just what I want in general. I want people to think I'm the best. But I say that because I just recently had a birthday, and today I'm 39. I've been 39 for a while. I'm not saying today is my birthday, but I am at this current moment 39 years old. So that means that next August, it's the big 4-0. I will no longer be able to make some of those really special lists that I always dreamed of. 5 under 35, that's been gone for a while. I think there's still a list for people under 40, but time's ticking. And I am known by thousands, if that, really known. I haven't accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And when I quiet myself down, like I'm asking you to do, when I push away all of the distractions, when I listen to what's going on inside of me, I know that the truth is that I'm not doing enough to change the natural course of things. Think of it this way. Rivers, they go to the natural low point. The water flows where the least path of resistance is. And if a bunch of water finds itself with no more low points, it builds up into a little lake. And if that lake sits there long enough, the water is pushing against all of the different borders that it's currently stuck in. We don't think of water as having willfulness or forcing, but water sitting there is seeping into the land. And every border of that lake has different qualities to it. Some of it is stonier, some of it is loamier, some of it is sediment, some of it is just loose mud. And the lake is going to find eventually a way to cut through, even stone if necessary, but to cut through that land feature and continue on as a river somewhere else. All natural lakes have inlets and outlets, and that's our life. So imagine now that that lake is next to a giant population of people in a desirable place to live. And people come along and say, well, if we could divert the water in this particular direction, it would be ideal. It would give people fresh drinking water or some sort of play time. I literally can't think of the word. Recreation. Woo, I did it. They could find recreational benefit from it. And so they go and they cut a path in the land where maybe the water wouldn't have gone, but they divert the water for their own use. And I imagine that this makes sense, but that takes a great deal of effort, energy, cost, expense, time, everything you can think of. To move water where water wouldn't naturally want to go takes a lot of effort. The same thing is true of stopping water from going where you don't want it to go. Think of the Hoover Dam. When you change the natural course of events, you're going to have to express an unreal amount of will in order to divert the path that your life is currently on. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to flow along time, the river of time, just cutting through at random. And unless you put a lot of will into it, you're going to end up wherever you end up. And hey, you know what? It was good enough for Gandalf. If you like The Lord of the Rings, a wizard arrives exactly when he means to. There's something to be said for allowing things to materialize, to having patience. But there's something to be said for exerting a great force of will. And what's on my mind today, what I want to share with you, is there is one place right now where I guarantee you're not doing enough. And that if you were to exert a great force of will on it, it could change everything for you, and it could change everything for you in the course of a few months. So for those of you who are listening and the analogies and this story is connecting with you, I'm going to challenge you right now to do something that's going to be uncomfortable. I don't know who's going to take me up on it, but I can't wait to hear your story when you do. For the next 90 days, roughly 3 months, I want you to post once a day on one social media channel. Whichever social media channel it is, I want you to pick that social media channel and I want you to make it your mission to post there once a day. 90 days, 90 posts. Doesn't matter what the post is, doesn't matter what the quality is, doesn't matter anything at all. Just post once a day for 90 days and tell me how it changes everything for you. Because it's going to take a great force of will. Maybe day one won't be hard. Maybe the first week won't be tough. You might even skate through a month with enough ideas that have been percolating in your mind. But somewhere along the way in those 90 days, you're going to think, I don't want to do this today. This is too hard. I don't have any ideas. Nobody likes my content. Nobody's sharing it. Nobody's buying my books. Nothing is happening. And I do want to take a moment here to say, I hear a lot from the greats that you can't go on social media and post with the goal of selling books or selling your art or selling your music. If you go there trying to sell, then nobody's going to buy it because nobody wants to be sold to. And I understand somewhat that concept. If every post you make is an identical copy of the one before, if you post a picture of your book cover or you post a picture of your album cover, do we even do album covers anymore? And you say, my album is available, grab it here, and that's the post you do every single day, you probably will not see much in the way of success. But I'm saying this because I want to say, who in their right mind can't want to sell books? I don't understand. It's not as if I can trick myself into not wanting to sell the book. And so if I'm posting with a specific desire in mind. And so don't not do something, double negative there, because you're concerned about your motives. I would say recognize your desire to reach the world and get out there and try to reach the world and accept that it is very likely that most everything you do will not succeed in gaining you new readers, new listeners, new followers. It's going to be a slog. Do it for 90 days and see what happens. And if you don't miss a day, I guarantee the person who takes me up on this and posts every day for 90 days is going to see a huge change in what they're doing. Now, I want to give you a few guidelines. And by the way, I'm going to take myself up on this challenge. And so you can go and look on Instagram from today forward. I will be posting something every day for 90 days. You can build a following that is not advantageous. If you post for 90 days and you decide that you want to post about your garden because that's low-hanging fruit, bad joke. You post about your garden, but you're an author and you want people to know about your books. Don't be surprised when you gain a larger following for gardeners, but that those people aren't necessarily clicking over and buying your book. You need to post content that is relevant to what you're doing, that you want to shine light on. I just recently had a guest on my other podcast, Becoming a Household Name. He is Ty Allen Jackson. He writes children's books about financial literacy, and his posts, they don't all talk about his book, but his posts talk about financial literacy for children. He's very topical in everything that he does, and that has created for him an incredible updraft where he's seeing a lot of sales generated from social media. Can he say that he doesn't want to sell his book? No. Can he say that he makes posts hoping that they won't sell books, that he's just going to build his brand? No. The idea that you build brand completely ignorant of what you're trying to accomplish in terms of putting something in somebody's hand and impacting their life and changing them, that's absurd. Now, here's what I can say for you. Let me talk about the Luke and Time Mysteries. That's my flagship series. I've written a few standalone novels right now, but most everything that I have published is within the Luke and Time Mysteries. So you've got The 9 Lives of Marvin Longhai, The 8-Ball Magic of Susie Q, The 24/7 of a Russian named Druskov, and just recently The 6 Sorrows of Shohei Matsui. I'm halfway through the 5-finger discount of A Perfect Stranger. And I've loved writing these books, and I love pitching the series. I have to think about the themes within the series. What am I trying to accomplish? What am I trying to tell people? Because I'm not writing simply to entertain. I'm not writing simply to entertain because I want to impart lessons that I've learned from life, and I'm trying to build characters who embody those lessons. Let me give you an example of my main character, Luke Evelyn Mia. Everybody calls her Little Cancer, and not just because she was born in July. She is a hard-living, obnoxious, very opinionated, and passionate person. She is hopelessly addicted to cigarettes and booze. There are roughly no scenes where she doesn't have a lit cigarette or a flask in hand, oftentimes both. And I am looking at her as a kind of representation of what's going on inside of me. I quit smoking cigarettes a long time ago. I was nicotine-free for several years. Then these stupid pouches came along. I tried them out. I liked them. So I've been using nicotine pouches for a little while. They're tobacco-free. Research suggests that there's no real damage to using them. So I'm enjoying them. I think occasionally about trying to quit them. But you know what? Addiction in general, wanting an altered mindset, wanting to be in a different headspace is a thing that I am constantly dealing with. And so I created a character who lives her life with an altered mindset, drinking, smoking, and moving through life doing that. And it's not a really simple one-for-one that I'm trying to create with her. I'm not trying to say, look, drugs is bad, because we love Luke. If I've done my job right, you love Luke. You root for her. You want her to win. You want her to get the guy. You want her to solve the case. You want her to survive the attacks. You want her to find truth. And at the same time, she has some really abhorrent behaviors because sometimes she drinks too much and does things she shouldn't do. Sometimes her temper gets the best of her and she says things she shouldn't say. All of those types of behaviors are ripe for creating content for me. And I haven't been doing it that way. This is really kind of a new realization for me, is that I need to start creating content around addiction, around altered mindsets, talking about the truth that I understand in the world, and then relating that to the books and sharing that through Reels on Instagram, which is what I'm going to try to do. You can look at your own books, and that's just one facet of my books. I have Lyle Kapuchnik, who's another character. Interestingly, he eats just about as much as Luke smokes and drinks. So still there's like an addiction element with him, though I really highlight his eating as a superpower and not something that's a problem. He eats in a victorious way. And as the series develops, he turns into a champion contest eater who goes up against Joey Chestnut at Coney Island in the hot dog eating contest. So that's a little bit of a spoiler for some of you, I suppose. But I see altered mindsets as something that can be really powerful in human development and growth. Maybe somewhere in my life, I will have nuanced changes in my beliefs and alterations in the way that I see the world. But right now, I think that altering our minds can be something really powerful and a powerful force for good. And of course, there's the dark side. So I try to represent that as well. Again, there's a lot more going on in these books, but when you come down to the heart of it, that's at the center of everything. And so I create a lot around that, and I should be talking about that on social media and really strategizing on how to create reels that talk about that and then push back into the books and highlight the books and not be afraid to put those books out there and say things about them that can relate to possible readers. That, I think, is a strategy that can start to get steam behind your motives and your efforts. So this is what I'm going to be doing over the next 90 days, is creating a reel every day and trying to stay topical like that. What is inside the novel? What can I create that is going to highlight the themes and motives of the characters and see where I am in 90 days? And it's something that I'm going to be trying to talk to you about on a weekly basis on this podcast, as well as on my podcast feed, Becoming a Household Name Elsewhere. So for those of you who don't know, I do two separate feeds. I'm part of this project that you're listening to right now. And then you can also find the standalone podcast. And there is a lot of fresh content there as well. My goal and my passion is to reach millions of readers. And that is such a big number right now that it doesn't feel real. Like I said, at best, I'm speaking to an audience of thousands of people across different platforms. I've got a lot of work to do. But what I realize is that for me, social media is the low-hanging fruit. Back to the poor pun. Terrible, horrible, poor pun. It's going to be a lot of work to do this. And in the words of somebody I admire greatly and have been listening to quite frequently, Gary Vaynerchuk, social media is free. So what are you complaining about? There's never been a time in our history where you've been able to promote something powerful and important to the world for free. You used to have to buy billboards. You used to have to buy airtime on TV. You used to have to buy a radio spot. You used to have to try to get interviewed by important people and rub elbows. Today, right now, you can take your phone out, you can open the camera, you can create a reel, and you can reach millions of people with one 60-second video. Don't tell me that it's too hard. It's easier than it's ever been. You just aren't willing to do what it takes to get there. This is one side of things right now, but I'm challenging you. Post once a day, every day for 90 days. And if you take me up on it, I'd love to hear your story about how it's going. I'm always looking for people to interview. If you do this, I'll definitely take you up and interview you, and we'll see what happened. And if I'm wrong, and you post once a day for 90 days and nothing happens and you haven't sold more books or more art or more albums, I will absolutely share that with the community. And of course, I'm going to be sharing my journey as well. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Becoming a household name won't happen overnight, but with your help, it can happen for me or for anyone you know who's on this journey. If you liked what you heard today, would you consider sharing this podcast with someone you know would love it too? Word of mouth is the single biggest difference maker for a dreamer's outcome. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.